Look closely at this ordinary house. You've probably walked past buildings exactly like this dozens of times. Normal windows, a front door, maybe even an AC unit on the wall, but if you tried to actually step inside, you wouldn't find any stairs or apartments or people. Curious. Behind that door is a massive echoing void, or more accurately, roaring metal turbines the size of a school bus. Surprised, buzzing transformers, and concrete shafts plunging deep underground. Welcome to How Cities Function. Today, we're going beneath the surface. We're going to break down how megacities are masterfully disguising massive industrial hubs as boring residential buildings. And why, without these hidden machines, everything around us would face total collapse. To really wrap your head around this architectural sleight of hand, let's take a trip to London, a really high-end neighborhood. Leinster Gardens, numbers 23 and 24, gorgeous Victorian facades, intricate stucco work, expensive-looking doors. But if you look at them from above, there is a gaping abyss right behind that facade. At the bottom of this artificial canyon run the tracks of the London Underground. These fakes were built way back in the 1860s. The steam trains in the subway needed to let out smoke and steam, but the architects, well, they didn't dare ruin the neighborhood character of this prestigious area with an open hole. So they built a stone screen. It is nothing more than a 10-inch thick movie set, hiding a massive open-air pit for steam locomotives. Now, New York City, Brooklyn, 58 Geralman Street. A totally unsuspecting red brick townhouse sitting right between some very expensive apartments. But its windows are always pitch black. Dead giveaway. Behind this facade hides a giant ventilation shaft and an emergency exit for the oldest line of the New York subway. If you blink, you miss it. Or take Paris. 145 Rue Lafayette, a classic Haussmann-style building, balconies, elegant grills. But if you prick up your ears, you'll notice something is wrong. No one ever steps out on those balconies, and behind the glass, it's just black emptiness. It's a complete sham. Nothing more than a stone screen. Inside is a giant ventilation shaft for the high-speed commuter trains running right under the absolute center of Paris. But they don't just disguise subway vents. Let's head over to the States, Raleigh, North Carolina. You're walking down the street. You see a cozy, single-story home with a nice porch, a manicured lawn, a fence, maybe even a security camera. A totally normal American suburb. But behind the front door, there is no hallway. There's a giant industrial pump pushing water for the entire neighborhood. There are hundreds of these houses across North America. Architects actually change the style of these fake homes depending on the street, so they totally blend in perfectly with the neighbors. Why? Because property values would instantly tank if they dropped a massive steel tank on the corner. However, the most mind-blowing example is in Los Angeles. This city is literally built on top of old oil fields. And believe it or not, they are still pumping oil there today. Right in the middle of residential neighborhoods. How do you do that without driving the locals crazy with the noise? Well, on Pico Boulevard, there's a tall office tower. No windows, just a sleek, modern facade. People drive past it to work every single day. But inside this tower, there's not a single office. It houses a giant drilling rig working 24/7. The building is camouflaged, designed to completely absorb the noise and vibration from the drilling. It's a massive industrial behemoth, hiding in plain sight. By the way, do you know what else is hidden from us? The cloud. We're used to thinking that our photos, texts, and videos are stored somewhere in a virtual space, but the internet is an absolutely physical thing. It's thousands of miles of heavy cables and massive, incredibly hot server farms. And guess what? They are planted right in the middle of our cities too. You might drink your coffee every day across from a huge, windowless, monolithic building, thinking it's an old warehouse. But in reality, it's one of the main hubs of the internet. There are no people inside, just endless rows of blinking servers and a deafening, roaring cooling system. Our virtual cloud is actually a heavy, heat-radiating machine that the city is forced to disguise as a concrete box, just so its overwhelming look doesn't crush the sanity of the neighbors. Or picture hidden cooling towers. A megacity generates a colossal amount of heat. Underground power plants, subway lines, giant transformers. It all rakes up incredible temperatures. That thermal energy has to be dumped somewhere or the equipment will just melt. In some cities, they build fake skyscrapers chimneys for this. They look like high-end glass and concrete business centers, but their roofs are open. And on cold days, giant pillars of thick white steam erupt from these ghost buildings. It looks totally surreal, like the city is breathing through these massive concrete lungs. Pedestrians think it's just steam from a boiler room, but it's actually the colossal cooling system of the underground city, hidden behind a mirrored facade. And now imagine giant underground highways, thousands of cars sitting in traffic below the earth every day. Where do tons of toxic exhaust fumes go? You can't just vent them through a grate in the asphalt, or the people on the street would choke. You need gigantic exhaust stacks for that. And engineers disguise them as architectural landmarks. And what you think is a beautiful clock tower in a square, a weird modern obelisk, or a decorative lighthouse might actually be the top of a pipe constantly spitting poisoned air high above pedestrians' heads. You're looking at a monument, but it's really the megacity's giant tailpipe. So, why do cities hide these nodes? The answer is simple: visual psychology and land value. If you drop a rough technical hub with blank walls and rusty grates in the middle of a nice neighborhood, it just destroys the vibe. The character of the entire neighborhood is gone. Real estate values around it would instantly crash. That's why the city plays this trick. Harsh engineering on the inside, peaceful facade on the outside. It's not about secrets. It's about a smart, expensive urban compromise. The craziest part about all this is the anatomy of these objects. A real house is always designed around a human. Lighting, bedrooms, comfortable flow. But this object is designed around a machine. There are no rooms. There are volumes, spans, and technical shafts. You literally can't carry heavy equipment through a normal door. The building is built around the turbine or pump, like a ship in a glass bottle. It's not architecture that happened to have technique. It's a technical monster forced to play dress-up as architecture. But that brings up another awesome question. Logistics. Sooner or later, every machine breaks down. A turbine the size of a school bus or a giant multi-ton transformer inside one of these houses burns out. It needs to be replaced. How do you get a steel behemoth out of a building if it physically doesn't fit through the doors? This is where true engineering magic happens. It turns out a lot of these fake houses have removable roofs. You'll never see it from the street, but when the city goes to sleep, they block off the neighborhood. Massive construction cranes roll in, and the roof of the fake townhouse or vent tower just flips open like the lid of a jewelry box. The old machine is pulled straight up into the night sky. The new one is lowered in, the roof is closed, and by morning, pedestrians have no idea that the building just had open heart surgery. Let's imagine the worst-case scenario. A real disaster. There's a threat people don't really talk about out loud. A reality check of urban life. Sinkholes. Many modern megacities are built on unstable soil, underground rivers, or former swamps. The ground is under incredible pressure from the weight of concrete and skyscrapers. And to keep entire neighborhoods from collapsing into giant sinkholes, cities need massive dewatering stations. Inside these hidden buildings are insanely powerful pumps that run 24/7, pumping thousands of cubic meters of water out of the ground so it doesn't turn into liquid mud. If these hidden stations stop for even one day, the asphalt will start to crack. Giant fissures will rip the streets apart, and we'd see a literal urban collapse right outside our windows. That's why these buildings are designed as indestructible bunkers for when the city faces total collapse. While beautiful glass offices shatter all around, this plain brick house has to stand its ground. It has an independent foundation, super thick reinforced concrete walls, and backup generators. If a disguised ventilation shaft collapses, people in the subway tunnels will run out of oxygen. In any major disaster, these buildings become the last line of defense. They are not architecture casual, they are engineered fortresses. Because they're so closed off, these places naturally breed paranoia. If a building reveals nothing, people start making things up. Look at 33 Thomas Street in New York City, a 550-foot concrete monolith, without a single window. Officially, it's an automated telephone exchange. Unofficially, according to investigations, it's one of the key surveillance hubs of the NSA, designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike and operate off the grid for weeks while the city around it lies in ruins. Cold War engineering at its finest. But the reality is even wilder than the spy movies. These buildings hide the hidden grid of the city. From the outside, they look dead, but inside, tech crews are constantly on duty. Infrastructure demands to be close to the consumer. Engineers are simply forced to embed these industrial hubs right into dense historical neighborhoods. And the city pays millions for complex multi-layer soundproofing, fake facades, and even fake balconies. That's the ultimate urban compromise. The city pays not just for the function, it pays for the function to not destroy the character of the place. Modern camouflage has become a true art form, but the perfect illusion still doesn't exist. There are always architectural mismatches if you get up close. Look for architecture anomalies. First, overly quiet first floors. No store windows, no normal entrances with intercoms. Just inconspicuous, extremely wide, massive steel doors. This is where they move the equipment. Second, blind windows. The glass might be tinted, covered in eternal dust, or you can see blinds inside that haven't moved in years. Sometimes there is no glass at all, just a fine steel mesh painted the color of the frame, hiding absolute darkness. On some buildings, engineers go even further. They paint fake shadows of curtains on the glass so it looks like the lights are on from the street. And finally, my favorite, physics. Check out the roof in the winter. Snow sits differently on fake houses because there's no warm, lived-in attic or heating underneath. The facade freezes differently than the neighboring buildings. And finally, listen to the sound. When you walk past a normal house, the sound of your footsteps reflects softly. It breaks up against the furniture, curtains, and people inside. A fake building is a giant, hollow acoustic chamber. Sound bounces off it with a harsh, booming echo, like a solid cliff face. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. I think after this video, it's going to be hard for you to look at the streets the same way. You'll definitely start noticing these overly quiet facades. Because now you know, not everything important has to scream about itself. Sometimes the most vital part of the neighborhood is a boring wall with the hidden grid pulsing right behind it, ready to break loose at any moment. If you want to understand the massive machines and hidden systems that keep our world alive, make sure to subscribe to How Cities Function. Hit the bell and smash that like button. And let me know in the comments,